All right, welcome back to Redneck Rantings. It is Thursday, April the 9th, 2019. We got us a brand new rant. I know it's been a few days since I did one of these. Like I said in my Peter Mayhew video, the wife and I are dealing with some issues, and that has been taking up more of our time than either one of us would like. Everything's fine between us. We're going just as strong as we ever were. Excuse me. So it's nothing bad on the marital front. It's just sometimes life throws you some drama and you have to deal with it. And that's what's been going on these last several days since I did the last video. I want to talk about the purge of so-called far-right extremists from social media. Okay, as I'm sure you're aware, recently the major platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, they all more or less on the same day went and banned a bunch of people, permabanned them, for having the wrong politics. We're talking about people like Milo Yiannopoulos, Paul Joseph Watson, Laura Loomer, of course, you know, my man Tommy Robinson from England, who is currently running for a seat in the European Parliament. They also threw in Louis Farrakhan just so they could say, see, you know, it's not just all these particular kind of people. We threw him in there too. Of course, they labeled him far right because, you know, you can't have somebody getting kicked out of the modern public square for political reasons and have them be a leftist because, well, that doesn't fit the narrative. Now, this distresses and scares the hell out of me, and it should do the same to you. And not just because of the fact that I am a conservative. Please understand that up until the 2016 election, I was a very staunch Democrat, and most of my core values, and I've said this before, do slant very traditionally Democrat, okay? Again, pro-gay rights, pro-environment, pro-weed legalization. I marched for a woman's right to choose, and I worked clinic defense back in Milwaukee, and I did so back when Milwaukee was basically Dodge City for that particular issue. I mean, I got into it a few times. All right, so it's not bothering me that these people got essentially kicked out of the dominant way that people communicate these days simply because I happen to share many of their politics. What's going on here is this is a direct assault on free speech. And some people, I'm sure, are going to say, well, you know, Bob, it's not a First Amendment infringement because it's a private organization saying, you know what, we don't want you here. It's not the government knocking on your door and dragging you off to prison, okay? And you know what? That's a bullshit argument. It is absolutely an infringement on people's First Amendment rights, and I'll tell you why. Our society has evolved to the point where social media is, like I said, the predominant way in which people communicate and get their news. Most people, even middle-aged types like me, don't really watch the 6 o'clock news anymore. They tend to follow Facebook, they tend to follow Twitter, Instagram, places like that. All places where these conservative-leaning, except for Farrakhan, pundits all got booted off. And I don't really care how you feel about, everything that Milo or PJW or Tommy says. They've all in their time said things that I personally didn't agree 100% with. But what's happening here is the social media conglomerates have decided that they are going to determine what opinions are and are not permissible to be expressed, okay? And what things you, as a user of their service, have a right to hear and be exposed to. And they're very specifically targeting people who were instrumental in getting President Trump elected in 2016. They never dreamed that Trump would get elected. Personally, I was as shocked as anybody when he did. And a big part of why he got elected was because people like PJW, Paul Joseph Watson, Laura Loomer, Milo, all of these conservative pundits were pushing his message of nationalist populism. And nationalism is not a bad thing, okay? Now, when you get into racial ideology and couple that with nationalism, like to take a fictional example, in the movie Black Panther, Wakanda is absolutely a racialist nationalist state, okay? But if you're not coupling racial identity with the idea of nationalism, it's not a bad thing. It's simply saying you love your country, you want to put your country's needs and interests first, which is what every other country in the world does and doesn't apologize for it except for America, which, as far as I'm concerned, is the greatest country in the world. And if you disagree with me, fine. I respect your right to do so. By all means, I invite you to go try it somewhere else and get back to me. Okay, I'm pretty sure people in Cuba, China, Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, Iran, and a whole raft of other countries would say that a bad day in America is better than a good day back there. Okay? Getting back on track. What this ultimately comes down to is the social media conglomerates are conspiring to limit free speech and to meddle, in the electoral process, both here in America and in the case of Tommy Robinson, in the foreign elections where he is running as a minister of parliament. What these people are doing is saying, no, we don't want you to have these particular opinions. We don't want you to have this information. We are going to tell you what to think, and we are going to tell you what you can and cannot be exposed to. You know, it's a very paternalistic nanny state idea, and it's straight out of 1984. This is nothing more than a big tech version of Big Brother telling you what you should and shouldn't be listening to, okay? This is no different at its core than what the Chinese government does, what the North Korean government does. The only real substantive difference is that instead of a government official doing it and not giving you any say in this matter, or what Maduro is doing in that, in that garden spot of the world, Venezuela, instead of a government official with an army backing him doing it, it's a billionaire saying, you know what, these are my politics, and the only message I'm going to allow is one that supports my political agenda. And that's dangerous because these people are not accountable to anyone. All right? A government official is accountable to the people. Who the hell is Zuckerberg or whoever or the guy in charge of Twitter accountable to? All right? Nobody. They can act in a dictatorial fashion, and they can frankly meddle with the electoral process in this manner. And part of the reason why they're doing it is because the political left realizes it can't win on the strength of their ideas. All right? There is a reason why long-term devoted leftists like myself, and I absolutely consider myself a leftist, okay? Remember, I am a member of a minority religion. I am a member of an alternate lifestyle. I'm polyamorous. I don't talk about that a whole lot in these videos. I am polyamorous. I have gotten into serious fistfights defending homosexuals from bigots. I am very pro-cannabis. I voted straight-line Democrat in just about, in every single election that I legally could until I walked away from the party in 2016, and I'm not alone. The reason why people like me are leaving the party is because the Democrats' message and their ideas no longer reflect the values of a great many of us, including many of us who once adhered to what was supposed to be their message and thought, well, these people are the best fit for me. So you can't win on the strength of your ideas and your message. So what do? You make it so that your message and your voice is the only one being heard. And that is not what the internet is supposed to be for. The internet is supposed to be about the expression of free ideas. Anybody can say anything, and it definitely goes against the concept of free speech. All right? It's not just what the government says you can and can't say. The idea of free speech is a free and open exchange of ideas. Two people can stand across the street from one another, arguing back and forth, you suck, no, you suck. I like pie, well, I like cake. Whatever the case is. All right? And that is not what is happening here. What is happening is we are having these tech oligarchs behave in a manner without anybody really questioning it, that if government officials did it, people would raise hell. And what's really scary to me is the people on the left are okay with it because it's the bad guys getting silenced. Well, you know what? If it's okay for them, if it's okay for somebody to do it to the people that you think are the bad guys, just remember, you have now set a precedent. Because sooner or later, and this is inevitable, history turns on these things. Sooner or later, your team is going to be wearing the black hats, okay? Sooner or later, your team is going to be the bad guys. And then it's going to be, no, wait, you can't do this to us. Remember back in 2019 when you guys said it was okay because, they were the bad guys? Well, guess what? Now you're the bad guys, okay? So if it can be done to the people that you don't like, it can be done to you. I don't care what your politics are, all right? I don't. You can be a card-carrying communist on the, in respect to this issue. You can be a card-carrying communist. You can be the most hardline right-wing Republican ever born. You can be anywhere in the middle. I don't care. This should not be acceptable to anyone, because if we don't have a free and open exchange of ideas, then modern society is dead. Modern society does not run on technology. It does not run on any of this other stuff. It starts with the free and open exchange of ideas. Anything less, and all we are is people living in a medieval time with nicer toys. That's it. So I would urge you to speak up and speak out against this, okay? You don't have to agree. Like I said, you don't have to agree with what these people say to respect their right to say it. I think Louis Farrakhan is a disgusting, reprehensible human being. The guy calls Jews termites. He literally said, I'm not an anti-Semite, I'm an anti-termite. He's literally calling Jews bugs. And I have people that I love very, very much who are Jewish. And you know what? Yeah, try playing the Orkin Man in my presence and see what it gets you, Minister Farrakhan. You won't like it very much, I can promise you that. I find him a reprehensible human being, but I respect his right to say these things. I don't believe that he should be silenced any more than I believe that Tommy Robinson, who I personally admire greatly and would love to sit down and have lunch with one day, I don't believe either of these gentlemen should be silenced. I think Ilhan Omar is a disgusting human being. I do not believe she represents the interests of my estate, but I respect her right to say the repulsive things that she says, because otherwise the whole idea of free speech and human rights in general falls apart. You should have the right to speak your mind without being unpersoned like in 1984. And if you disagree with that, and I understand, I'm not talking about you should have the right to shout fire in a crowded theater, or you should have the right to incite violence. Anybody who is saying, a person has the right to say, I don't like people who wear hats. Okay, fine. I wear a hat in every one of these videos. It's part of my look. If somebody wants to do a YouTube video or a Facebook post about how I think anybody who wears a hat is basically advertising, hi, I'm a pretentious asshole, you know what? Fine. Hell, if it's funny enough, I might laugh at it and give it a thumbs up. But you don't have the right to say let's go beat up people who wear hats. And none of the people who got banned, well, actually, I'm pretty sure Farrakhan has called for the extermination of the Jews on at least one occasion. Unless somebody is calling for direct targeted violence, which Tommy Robinson never did, Alex Jones never did, Paul Joseph Watson never did, Laura Loomer never did, Milo Yiannopoulos never did. Milo Yiannopoulos, I can take his humor. It's kind of hit or miss. Personally, I think he's funny as hell. Him and Paul Joseph Watson always crack me up. None of these guys ever called for targeted violence against other people. They criticize certain belief systems. They call bullshit on certain political ideas and certain outright lies and half-truths that people they disagreed with told. But they never said, you know what, get your torches and pitchforks and go get them. And that should be the only thing that gets you banned from, or one of a very short list of things that should get you banned from social media. All right? It's not hate speech to criticize or disagree with someone. It's hate speech to say, let's go beat them up because I disagree with them. And if you can't see that and you can't find your way to agreeing that speech which does not specifically reference encouraging other people to be harmed deserves to be protected whether or not you agree with it, then you don't have the right to call yourself a progressive, okay? Part of being a progressive, part of being any kind of liberal, open-minded individual with any real honesty about yourself is saying, I don't like what you're saying, but I respect your right to say it. This video's gone on a little bit longer than I wanted it to, but that is today's message. You don't have to agree with what people say politically to respect their right to say it in the public square. And social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, these are the new public square. So please think about this and ask yourself, how would I feel if it was my team getting silenced? Because if you wouldn't like it, then guess what? You don't have the right to support it happening to the other guys. Okay? That's all for now. Peace out. Be well, be safe. Like, share, subscribe, hit the bell button, ding, ding. And I will talk to y'all later. Bye now.